Wales and South Africa this weekend, folks. Warren Gatland could really use a win. They haven't had one in 2024. This is their last shot of the year, and they only have the number one team in the world, reigning World Cup and Rugby Championship champions, the Springboks, coming to town. So it'd be a hell of a way for Wales to end the season if they could manage a win. Expectations are not high, and the Springboks will be looking to complete off what for them has been a pretty good season. As I mentioned, they've only dropped a couple of games, and Russie has rotated the squad. I really look forward to checking out the Springboks depth chart in a few weeks, because I think it'll make for pretty interesting reading. We will go through the squads, the recent history, some stats, predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on how this one is going to go. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy rugby content, because there will be certainly more of that to come. I am wearing the Welsh jersey because they are the underdogs. Big time underdogs. I don't think I've ever seen a Welsh home fixture where they are literally predicted to get beaten by 20 plus. But this is where we are at. The Welsh squad has changed a little bit from last week's disappointing. I say disappointing. I am annoyed and frustrated with how poorly Wales went in that game, especially when the Aussies had a bloody red card. And they still managed to put the Welsh to the sword. And I did feel sorry for Gats in the press conference. Basically, every other question, or maybe three-quarters of the questions in the press conference were basically, are you going to quit? Do you think it'd be better for Welsh Rugby if you weren't here? Is there a break clause in your contract? Blah, blah, blah. No one was really talking about the game. Only a little bit. There was a lot of talk about Gats. But he's had to rotate things around a little bit. They've had a 6-day turnaround from last week's game, which, as I mentioned, was pretty disappointing. So they have got some fresh legs into the side. They have kept the same front row with Thomas, Lake, and Griffin. They will need to absolutely have their game of the season up against the Springboks front row. Rollins and Chiunza is a slightly changed lock-in duo, with Chiunza coming up from the bench. Adam Baird being unavailable really sucks for Wales, because if there's one thing that guy can do, it's because of his lanky frame. You know, he's a huge man. He can disrupt line-out mauls. And that's a weapon that the Boks bring to the table. So the fact that he's out is very bad timing for Gats. I mean, Chiunza was their top line-out man last week. Came on early, tackled the house down as well, but maybe doesn't have that kind of same unique skill set that Adam Baird has with line-out disruption at maul time. Both them, Morgan and Plumtree, has a slightly changed back row as well, with Plumtree coming in for Wainwright at number 8. Gats basically mentioned that was the case of just freshening up the legs with the 6-day turnaround. Jack Morgan continues on, though, ahead of Tommy Reffel, who's still on the bench, despite the fact that Morgan made 27-odd tackles last week and was their top guy for busting tackles. So if anyone deserves a rest, it's Jack Morgan, but he's probably Wales' best forward and potentially best player on the field at the moment. So they absolutely need him to have another standout performance. Ellis Bevan and Sam Costello is the 9-10 combo. They kick mostly off 9, do the Welsh, so potentially a little bit less ball getting into Costello's hands. It means there's no Gareth Anscombe for this one. I didn't read that he's injured, but maybe it's just another case of freshening the legs up. Anscombe is one of the more senior members of the squad, so maybe 2 games with the 6-day turnaround is a little bit much to ask. If he is injured, do let me know. Thomas and Llewellyn continue on in the midfield. Rio Dyer comes in on the left wing. He replaces Blair Murray, who switches to fullback for this one. Blair Murray has looked sharp in a few test matches that we've seen him play. He did get sat down by Joshua Tuisova against Fiji, but you kind of won't hold that against them, because that man is a hard man to bring down. But attacking-wise, Blair Murray is really sharp. And then Tom Rogers was one of the few bright spots in a pretty poor performance for Wales last week. Really good in the air. And if he can catch some high balls and get himself into some space, who knows? Maybe he'll be clocking up some run meters. There's no Cam Winnett for this one. Ryan Elias, Nicky Smith, and Kieran Asarati are the replacements. Please let Ryan Elias get his line-out throwing right when he comes off the bench. Freddie Thomas is due for his debut if he comes off the bench, so big congratulations to him. He's one of the youngsters, lock loose forward from Gloucester. So, a good chance to see him in Welsh colours. Tommy Reffel, like I mentioned, will be making some tackles when he comes off the bench. Rodri Williams, Eddie James, and Josh Hathaway. So it's a 5-3 split for the Welsh. Not tempted to go full forwards up against the big Springbok pack. But remembering a couple of weeks ago when Wales went for the 6-2, they had a winger go down early, so it kind of ended up biting them against Fiji. For the Boks, they have been able to make a few changes, and what I continue to be, like as I said, excited about seeing the depth chart thing is just how many changes they have made. Russ has been able, and it's not really bitten him, you could argue it bit him against Argentina over in the Rugby Championship, but they've still been able to maintain pretty good performance levels despite all the changes. I think performance levels would have been higher if they hadn't made as many changes as they did. But it's an investment in the future, right? You take a slight dip in performance levels now with all the experience gained for the future. And they've still, as I said, dropped bugger all games. So it's not really been too costly. And they've been able to make some more changes here with Wales as their final game of the year. We'll scrap everything I'm saying here about Ox continuing on because he doesn't. Russia's late decided to give him a rest, so the image is wrong. It's Wokolo coming in at tight head, Dutoy switches to loose head, and Robala gets a start at hooker for a change. There you go. Klein and Mostert is an all-new locking duo as well. Klein, I think it's going to be his first game for the Boks this year because he's had a long time out unavailable. And then Mostert, who's also had a pretty disrupted season in terms of his injuries, gets another game for this year. He will be right up there in terms of the tackle count, right up until he gets replaced because the Boks do have 2 locks on the bench. So one would assume Klein and Mostert will be sitting on the sidelines before full time. Kolisi was the top tackler for the Boks last week. He continues on and captains the side on the flank. Elric Lowe promoted from the bench to start for this one, and Jasper Wiese, who busted like 5 tackles, quietly going under the radar, had a pretty good game last week at number 8. The brothers, their first time, they've both played for the Boks, but they've never played 9-10 combo together for the Boks. Jaden and Jordan Hendrickson, that's going to be a commentator's dream at 9 and 10. Look forward to seeing how they go together. They should have, one would assume, a pretty good understanding of each other's games, although I don't know how much professional rugby they've played together, if any, because they tend to play for different teams as far as I'm aware. De Allende and Creel continues to be a pretty premier midfield combo. Even Gats was talking them up in the pre-match press conference. They continue on. Aronsa and Colby likewise on the wings. Colby was in scintillating form last week. He did get that World Player of the Year nomination. And then Fassi is there at fullback. There is another World Player of the Year nominee on the bench with Eben Etzebeth. There's no Peter Steph Dutoy for this one. He has played a fair bit of rugby this year. Not more than Eben, though, in terms of games, but maybe more in minutes. I haven't added them up. Marks, Stennekamp, and Koch are the same front replacements, so that's the same as last week. When those 3 guys and potentially Eben and Archias Neyman come on, that's a whole new Type 5 from the bench. Look for some immediate impact. And then Cameron Honeycomb gets his chance in Springboks colours, so congratulations to him. He looks like a proper beast of a player when he's been playing at URC level, so it's just another one of many loose forwards you guys have in South Africa getting a crack. They did ask him in the pre-match press conference if he had considered playing for Wales, because I believe he is Welsh eligible, but his answer for that was no, which is the correct answer when you've got Rassie Erasmus sitting right next to you, but I believe him 100%. It's no doubt. He's grown up in South Africa. He's grown up dreaming of playing for the Boks, and that dream's going to come true for him, assuming he comes off the bench this weekend. And then 2 backs, Corbus Ranak and Andre Pollard rounding out the 23, so a bit of experience to see off the bench. Stats. The stats are always tough reading when we get to the Welsh stats for 2024. Sadly, they are the lowest team of the Tier 1 teams we're tracking for run meters per game. They average just over 300. Most teams are high 300s, 400s, 500s. So, yep, Wales doesn't get that much go forward ball. And guess what? Wales's lowest recorded number of run meters this year was in that game earlier in the year at Twickenham where they played the Springboks. So that doesn't bode too well. They only had 170 metres in that game. They averaged 17 defenders beaten a game in terms of the busting tackles, which is also pretty low. Most sides are well above 20 on average. Some are into the 30s. They had 6 against South Africa last time, which again doesn't bode that well. That was Wales's lowest total of the year. However, we do need to keep in mind, and I keep banging on about this, the Welsh squad is very, very young. They're averaging just over 25 years old, which is among the youngest squads of all the Tier 1 teams. Australia is similar. The Italians are similar. So Wales have lost a whole lot of experience. The team is very, very young. The Boks side averages this year with all those double World Cup winners like 30 years old. They are the opposite end of the age and experience scale. They're also a bit heavier as well. For South Africa, they dominate possession and territory. That has been a thing about their season this year. One would expect it to continue this weekend up against Wales, and they continue to be another quarter four team. I've been talking about their fourth quarter for a while, where it's a time where they've tended to either put teams to the sword, or if they have been behind against the All Blacks, I seem to remember, they've been able to kind of see out games, see either from the bench or the composure, whatever you want to talk about. But their fourth quarter is good. 7-0 against England in the fourth quarter last week is just another example of that. 142 to 42 on the year of points scored and points conceded. So the fourth quarter has been an absolute goldmine for the Boks. They're averaging 4 tries a game. They had 4 tries against England. They had 4 tries against Scotland in their first of their 2 tour games. They potentially could chalk it up to a few more than 4 this weekend if they keep going for mauls and looking to spin it instead of going for poles. They are the only side this year as well to be limiting opponents to less than 300 meters a game. So everyone else concedes 300 plus meters a game, except the Boks. Their defense has been very stingy. So yes, a lot of good numbers predicting, one would imagine, a Bok victory here. The history between these sides has changed. And Rusty talked about this in his press conference as well, how Wales always used to be a real grind for the Boks. And if we're looking back at the last 5, you can see the shift, like 32-29 back in 2022. 13-12, that's the one Welsh win, also in 2022, when Wales went down to South Africa. Remember, these are the Wayne Pivac times. Then there's 30 points to 14. That's the final game of that Welsh tour, which kind of got a little bit more comfortable for the Bok boys. And then the last 2, this is your real shift. 52-16 in the Rugby World Cup warm-up match, and then 41-13 at Twickenham this year. I mean, even thinking back a bit further than these last 5 games, matches between Gats and Russie and Wales and South Africa tended to be real arm wrestles, but this is predicted not to be in that kind of neighbourhood. Average score recently is 33-17 across the last 5. As I said, there's a couple of blowouts there which kind of blow out the averages. Predictions, South Africa by 24 is what the Rugby Forecast algorithm says, and 26 according to the bookies. It's not predicted to be a good day at the office for the Welsh lads, but hey, it would be a hell of a storyline even if they got within a score. It would be much unpredicted, and Gats would be able to go into the press conference with a little bit more of his head held high, because, as I said, it was pretty rough watching him this morning. Carl Dixon from England is the ref. It is on the Principality Stadium. 5:40 kickoff for you guys locally. I think that's 6:40 for those of us here in New Zealand in the morning. So it's a pretty decent kickoff time. The sun will be up. I'll be having a cup of coffee and watching some Wales up against South Africa. It's rank 1 against rank 11. It is a bit of a mismatch on paper, which is sad because, as I said, it used to be kind of one of those really tough fixtures for both sides. But fingers crossed this young Welsh side can give them a go. They're not predicted to do much. Expectations are low. Boks will be looking out to finish their season on a high. What do you guys reckon? Is 26 odd points too much? Do you think it'll be closer than that? Or do you see the Bok boys running absolute riot over Wales? You guys let us know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel if you liked the content. I appreciate you watching all the way to the end. You guys take care, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.